The knife clinked against the china when I set it down. The room fell silent, but not because of me. It was my father's voice, thunder ripping through the dining room. He didn't say my name, just that. Like I was a stain he'd scrubbed too many times and finally decided to throw away. My aunt smirked. My cousins looked down, chewing turkey like it was their job. My mother just sipped her wine, her silence sharper than his scream. I stood, straightened my dress, brushed invisible crumbs from my lap. "All right," I said, calm. "No tears, no begging." And I walked out. They thought they'd broken me. What they didn't know, what they'd never bothered to learn, was that every mortgage, every car, every college fund, every hospital bill in that room was fed by my empire. $58 million under my hand. My hand. They laughed at me as a single mom, but their entire lives were wrapped in silk I'd paid for, and I had just decided to cut the strings. It wasn't always like this. Once, I believed in family dinners, in saving the best wine for Thanksgiving, in the idea that blood meant loyalty. When I divorced, I thought they'd rally behind me. I thought they'd see the bruises he left, the years of silence I endured, the child I protected. Instead, they said I'd failed, that I hadn't tried hard enough, that I was selfish for choosing freedom over a facade. They never asked how I was feeding my son. They never asked where the money came from when the house was bought in cash, when the tuition was wired the same day the acceptance letter arrived. They never asked because they assumed the checks in their accounts came from my father. And I let them believe it, for years, because silence was power, and power grows quietly. I should have noticed sooner, the way they spoke of me, even when they thought I wasn't listening. Words slipping like poison into casual conversations. "She's irresponsible. She's always been a disappointment. She's not built for success." They loved the life I provided, but they loved me only as their scapegoat, a convenient disgrace to whisper about after dessert. And then Thanksgiving confirmed it. The sneers, the mocking laughter when I said no to another glass of wine. My father's finger stabbing the air. Disgraceful single mom. The room echoed with it. My son's face flashed in my mind. Disgraceful? No. They didn't know the meaning of strength, but they were about to learn. On the drive home, I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I didn't scream at the windshield like I used to in weaker years. I planned. Every account I controlled. Every business under my name. Every trust fund, card, and automated transaction tied to my empire. They thought the money was endless, but it was only endless as long as I allowed it. By midnight, I had made the decision. By dawn, I executed it. Execution of the plan. I logged in. Quiet fingers, deliberate strokes. Click. Their accounts froze. Click. The cards declined. Click. Mortgages, car leases, tuition payments, terminated. I didn't leave them destitute. I left them exactly where they deserved, facing the truth of their own lives, stripped of my protection. By noon, their phones started ringing. By evening, I was on a plane to Honolulu, my son asleep against my shoulder, the ocean already whispering our welcome. I didn't answer their calls. I didn't read the messages. I imagined the panic in their voices, the realization dawning like fire on dry grass. Everything they had mocked me for, my independence, my solitude, my single motherhood, was the very thing that allowed me to rise while they crumbled. It took 3 days for them to show up. I was on the balcony of my beach house when the knock came. My father's knock. Heavy, demanding, the same rhythm that once made me flinch as a child. I opened the door. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not in size. He was still broad-shouldered, still iron-faced, but in presence, his power had evaporated. "You can't do this," he said. I tilted my head. "I already did. You'll destroy the family." "The family destroyed itself." His jaw tightened. My mother stood behind him, wringing her hands. My cousin cried into her phone on the steps, no doubt begging her bank for answers. "You've always been ungrateful," he hissed. "No," I said, calm. "I've always been quiet. You mistook silence for weakness." And I closed the door. The sound of the lock sliding into place was the sweetest revenge I'd ever tasted. The ocean was endless that night. My son laughed on the sand, chasing the tide as it pulled and returned, pulled and returned. I sat with a glass of wine, barefoot, the salt air settling into my skin. I wasn't angry, I wasn't grieving. I was free. They would learn to live without me, or they would collapse under the weight of their own arrogance. Either way, I would not be there to catch them. My empire was mine again. My son was mine. My peace, finally mine. And as I watched the horizon bleed into twilight, I whispered to the